So I just shared my screen. Are you able to see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. All right. So hopefully you're seeing the actual slideshow screen.
Ooh, and it's actually picking
Is
up
it
whatever you're saying.
is it
Sort
putting
of.
in subtitles?
Yes.
Yes,
What the heck?
it's putting your subtitles.
Oh, this is cool.
Be nice.
Whoa.
Be
I
careful
Voice
what you
to text
say.
on the fly.
Wow, literally as I talk.
I'm gonna have to get one of those old computers.
But
This-
it's only picking up what you're saying, Alan, not what we're saying.
This is weird. Well, this computer originally ran Windows 7.
Yeah, well, moving right
Well,
up there.
Okay. All right.
Oh, just wait. You've used dictation before, right?
Exactly. Well, we were using it today. So just to give you guys a background, I don't know where we want to start. Ed, you let me know if we want to start or just kind of go into it, or as I say down in Tuskegee, we chew the fat for a little while.
Well, why don't you let us know who you are, what you are, and where you are, kind of thing.
Well, that just so happens that that's slide number 2.
Oh, mind reader too.
So a little bit more about me. My name is Alan Winston. I'm a transplant originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and moved to Chicago with a second home in Tuskegee, Alabama. My dad was a photographer, so I grew up developing film in his bathroom. And I grew up shooting on a speed Graflex 4x5, and he had a couple of twin lens Rolleiflexes that I grew up on. So kind of learned the photography from
Alan, look at your screen behind that Patrick.
Oh, Patrick, oh, you're gonna So unfortunately, I lost my 4x5, and Patrick's gonna rub this in, and the Rolleiflex. Oh, is that the 2.8? Is that the one with the meter on it? Does it have the light meter on it, Patrick?
You're muted,
Muted.
Patrick.
Yeah, there we go. No, it does not.
Okay.
I'd have to look at my notes to see what model it is, but it's
Okay.
it's about a 1955-ish.
1955, yeah. So I grew up with the 2.8 version of that. I forgot the actual model number of that one as well. And now I've ended up transferring over to a Coney Omega twin lens. So I've been kind of photographing that, and I got about 4 rows of 120 to develop somewhere. Maybe I'll send it out to Richard's camera someplace. So that's kind of been in my blood, everything from high school all the way to college. And then as a professional career in Chicago, I went to Harrington College of Design for their commercial photography program, and mentored underneath several master photographers for about almost a decade. And ended up deciding to try and make a full-time professional career of it out here after moving to Chicago, after moving to Albuquerque 10 years ago. And so my wife and I got tired of the cold. We left the snowblower, we left the shovels, and we decided to move out to in Rio Rancho, where there was little or no snow. So we're happy with that. I'm trying not to be distracted by these subtitles popping up. This is too wild. So right out here, when I started the business, I specialized in corporate and private events. So everything from annual events, annual company events, to the big corporate 4 or 5 day events. And that was my bread and butter. And then we had a commercial studio. Well, we did headshots for local actors, people here in Albuquerque, businesses, real estate, and then a lot of pet photography. So that was my love. In fact, today I have a working contract part-time over at the base studio, I actually got a chance to photograph one of the military working dogs. So I'll see if I can download that picture real time here and bring that up. And that was kind of an off the cuff shoot. So everything was going great up until there we say it, 2020. So that kind of took a side turn, and we ended up, they ended up offering me a more full-time contract over there at the base. So I said, sure, why not? So that has gotten busier, and guess what we're moving into more of? Somebody tell me. It's not just still photography.
Video.
Yep, yes, sir. You're exactly right. We have moved into live streaming and video production. And today we just finished a live streaming, a video production of an interview of a couple that we're going to have for the military families and relationship building and everything. So we're doing a composite for that. So I'm learning that side of the track now. So that's kind of the more of a background, and I just left those lines blank because that gives me more to talk about instead of being set in. And then just to kind of give you a background with the studio photography, I don't know how many people here have done a whole lot of studio photography, but with that, I was taught that in college at Harrington. I learned from master studio photographers, teachers who worked for McDonald's, who worked for the White House. One of the mentors I worked for has photographed over 4 presidents in his lifetime, 3 presidents in his lifetime, and multiple movie stars and actors and everything. So I got a chance to actually pick up a lot of things from them on that. And that's kind of my style. So I developed my own style. It's a low-key style, low-key lighting, black background. And that's what I've kind of developed to put out there on the market here, which has been a pretty good hit. So now I just got to rethink that market. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually moved to shooting for the Albuquerque Journal magazine pet calendar. So we went from studio after 2020 to on location, and now shooting outdoors. So I've adapted some of those studio settings to my outdoor settings. So just real quickly, I'll go into some of these, and this may kind of be reiterating what you already know. But for camera settings for studio, ISO is always the lowest possible thing that we can, we want to keep at. The light sources, the modifiers in my studio, I have always tried to shoot with the largest light source, which is what I trained on. And that is a 6-foot backdrop. 6-foot light modifier on a black backdrop. When the pets come in, whether it be a human or a 4-legged animal or 3-legged, we try to keep the studio clear and clean, and the backdrop and floors are all set up. And then I do sit down with them for a pre and post session. So kind of what to expect, what they're going to expect afterwards, and then kind of work with the pets and let them get comfortable. Today was a great example because the little military working dog was really wound up coming into the studio. So just to go back over again, I keep the light ISO that I shoot with as low as possible. Shutter speed is around 200th of a second, which is the maxing speed for my camera for the studio lights. And for f-stop, people always say, well, I want the blurred background. Well, for black background or studio work, you don't have to worry about too much of that. So I just try to keep the f-stop to where I'm comfortable with. And that can be anything between 4 or 5 all the way up to f8. In studio. So I have a little play room to play with in there. And this is a picture of basically my working light style. One light, a reflector, and then I'm shooting the subject straight on with the background and behind the subject. And with the large light source, of course, you may have already known, that's going to make that picture softer all the way through. Okay. And so some of the modifiers, these are the things that I've looked at before and that we've tried, everything from the classic umbrellas to soft boxes. I grew up with a Dynalite kit, which is a 1,000-watt kit. And I use the light modifiers inside of my soft boxes, which are the egg crates to help direct the light. Each one is going to provide something slightly different. And I'm sure some of you may already know that without a modifier, just bare bulb, you're going to get light all over the background. If I want to keep the background black or dark as possible, then I'm going to try to keep my modifier and my lights away from that background. And then, like I say, when I bring up the doggy picture today, I'll see if I can show you a little bit of that. The studio style, and this is a picture even on location. So duplicating a studio setup inside of a vet break room or a vet exam room, which you can see is pretty tight in space in there. Same thing, gray backdrop, one light, and that's the kind of the image that we're getting there with the little pup in the Halloween costume. So this was just a grand opening event for this vet clinic, and up on the wall over there next to the umbrella, you'll see one of the artwork pictures that we have installed in that location as well. So we were able to sell some of them, their clients' pets, pictures on their walls, which is pretty cool. And this is a picture of the studio space with the black background paper. You'll see the reflector on one side and then the light on the other one, on the left-hand side. I actually took the modifier down just so you can see the light flashing, but usually I would have the egg crate on there to help keep that light from spilling on the background, but just to show you the difference there. So the left picture is with the egg crate off. The right picture is with the egg crate on, which helps direct that light and we won't get the spill on the background. This is an example of what that will look like. This was one of our doctors here in Albuquerque, and this was one of her children who came into the studio. And we took pictures of her as she was close to the light, lighting up one side and using the reflector to bring up the other side. So it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but the finished product looks like these. So this is post editing. Bringing, and I shoot in RAW only that allows me to bring up the shadows a little bit more, and I shoot underexposed to help with the low light in the background. But this is kind of that same classic low light, black background style that I developed over the years here. And these photos, including one more over her wall on huge frames that we had printed and developed. Okay. And then as people come into the studio, I always try to give them something to, before they come in, what to expect. If they're coming in and they have a pet or even a person, here I always send them a preparation sheet. On that sheet lets them know about the pet coming in, what to bring, if they have a favorite toy, get the signed waivers, having that there. If they're afraid of an environment, try to bring a person that they're really comfortable with, and then come ahead of time so they can actually let the animal run around the studio and get comfortable. Cats, where the dogs, we've had turtles, parrots, anything that's going to be out of their normal zone is always going to want to come in and get comfortable with the situation. Sometimes they may not ever feel totally comfortable, but for the most part, if they come ahead of time, maybe about 30 minutes, they will feel pretty comfortable to run around with in studio. And this was something that I couldn't do without the owner's help. So unfortunately, a lot of times when people come in and they bring their pets, they want to try and treat them as if these were their children and they're the best trained children in the whole wide world. And the owners will want to try and act that way. So a lot of times I will help them feel comfortable and have to work with them just like I would work with the animals. So I have the owners help me with the session to kind of calm the dog or the cat, hold them to the side. They'll stand off to the side with the pet. And then working with an assistant in my studio, the assistant helps me, who is already trained and understand my workflow, how to actually keep the owner calm and keep the pet calm. And that helps direct the session itself. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, here's one example in the upper left. This is one of the assistants, and Patrick, you know Sherry. If the cat isn't comfortable, and we couldn't get the cat to actually stay in one place. So Sherry volunteered to go underneath the tablecloth, which is a black tablecloth, and actually put the cat in her lap. Now, mind you, Sherry's allergic to cats, so she took a real hit for the team here. We were able to get some really great shots from that session with just the cat sitting in her lap. The same thing with the dogs looking off to the right. To get this shot in the upper right hand corner, just having the owner off to the side, just slightly to my left, and say, call the dog's name. And now we were able to get this picture of them kind of looking up with the light streaking in the background. Just to add a little note to those pictures, both of those dogs have passed, and they passed of cancer. And this is one of the favorite pictures that the owner now has of those dogs in her house. The one in the lower right, the little dog's the nose sticking out there, we tried to do something a little more artistic, and having the dog just the picture cropped and making multiple pictures out of one shot. And now that picture is in the wall, on the wall in one of the vet clinics here as well. So one of the things in the session that I always try to focus on, and then we got a chance to try to prove that again today at the studio, is always focus on the eyes, and then shooting for the best image. So part of my consult with sitting down with a customer or client before they come in is to find out where they're going to put the picture. Is it going to go in the bedroom? Is it going to go into the kitchen? Or where are they going to have this? So we try to shoot to picture toward that. So like the client before, where we knew that these are going to go up on a wall in a bedroom, we had those pictures framed or shot and then composed and then framed based on where they're going to align up in the wall in the bedroom. And that was kind of shooting toward the final product. So that goes back to the composition and shooting toward that image. These are some more examples of that same thing with the dog in the upper left. This Weimaraner was one of the first dogs that I photographed here that actually got me a couple of accounts here in Albuquerque. And they ended up putting this up in their house. And then about a year later, unfortunately, he passed. But that's one of the most, one of my most iconic pictures that I really like and enjoy. And then the kind of just to talk about a little bit more of the studio, and I can show a little bit more what we have, but I want to open this up to you guys and find out what you're looking at as far as studio sessions or ideas of it, or even location, and just kind of open up to that. But after every session, we do a review, we do a post composite work with the client. And then every studio session, we do a cleanup and then a follow-up with them online. All right, so I know that's kind of a bird's eye view of everything. It was kind of a open source. Like I said, I do have a couple more pictures to show, but just kind of want to open it up to any questions, anything that as I've gone through right now. Does anybody have any questions on that?
So I'm Clay Laban. I just wanted to say that I had looked at your portfolio on the web, and I did see that you did a Valentine's Day shot with a puppy that was very cute. I had that with our newsletter. And is that something you do kind of spontaneously on spec, or do you work with the vet clinics and puppy owners to do things for a calendar?
That is a good question. And in fact, we just did the Valentine's Day shoot, and now we're getting ready for the St. Patty's Day. So we work with several rescues here. One where I adopted my first dog from, which was Loving Labs. We work with Fat Cats, which is a cat rescue here. So these are fundraisers that I come in and help and volunteer and actually help them with I guess funding for adoptions. So people can come in, donate $10, they get a picture, and I actually go above and beyond from the last photographer, where I have a digital event printer and actually print out photos for them to take with them. So it's kind of a value add for them. And a lot of times the people come in, they're just blown away by the photo, even on the spot in a vet store or a pet store. And we give them a print to take home. And then I will go back and process the photos. And in 2 or 3 days, I can go in and remove the leashes, tone things up, make eyes pop and things like that. And then the rescue will email those photos to them. So people literally have come back every year, every season. And right now we have 4 that have collected photos for each of those events, and they have them up on their mantles at their house or refrigerators. And they look forward to those every year. So everything from fat cats to loving labs, Animal Humane, we do a photo booth for them every year for their fundraiser, which is one of their biggest. And at that one, we do a big photo booth with a green screen. And we use the same imagery that they use for the event, we put onto the print. And the same thing, people come there every year with their dogs and they look to get the same print or a different print every year in their costume. And this year, my assistant and I are going to take a next step, and we're going to try to do this on our own instead of for somebody else, and actually partner with one of the local breweries and do a Pints for Pets photo shoot. So our idea is that they come in, bring their pets in. There's a pet-friendly establishment. They can actually buy food, buy beers, they get a ticket, they come over to us, and then we take portraits of their animal and then try to upsell, higher end packages. But at the same time, it's encouraging people to come to the establishment, buy food, buy drink, and then we will get a percentage of that sales for the evening and that 4-hour period. So we're still trying to finalize some of the details, and then our plan is to meet with the local brewery here to see if we can get that set up for sometime in the spring when it's a little bit warmer. Is our goal.
Well, thank you. That's really excellent. And you kind of answered my other questions in terms of how big a market is pet photography compared to, I don't know, company portraits where you have to go in and shoot the executives and other things.
Right.
It sounds like you're making it really grow.
Well, 2020 was a big hit, to be honest with you guys. That really kind of knocked me off my feet. So we're really trying to rebrand and rebuild a business. If I didn't have that contract at the base, I'm grateful for that. No telling where I would be right now.
With the veterinarians, is the base client where they always want you to come in?
No, this is at the base headquarters where I take official photos at the base. So
the military base.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, the
So
military
Air Force
base.
base.
Yes, sorry.
The
Yes.
Air Force Base. Got it.
The Air Force
All right.
Base here.
Yeah.
Yes. So at the Air Force Base, I take official photos there with that contract. So to be transparent, when the events were here, they were 4-, 5-, and 6-day events, sometime 2 weeks. And we were contracted to shoot the main night, event night, or the meeting rooms themselves. So I would be at the event 2, 3, or 4 days in 1 week, setting up a photo booth or covering the event meetings themselves. And these were anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 nights, to be honest. Those were the bread and butter. A lot of those events have gone the way of Zoom or hybrid meetings. So that 500 to 1,000 people that used to be at the event are down to 200 to 300 people. So the requests to come in and actually photograph these events have dwindled. Just meeting with the Visit Albuquerque team, which is the tourism department here, they're expecting by 2024 to have to be back to close to pre-pandemic levels of international tourism. But that is what was driving the market, that international tourism. So the best part of the business was done through the corporate events and the corporate on location headshots. The secondary part of my business was the studio work. I didn't really focus on that then because we were so busy with the corporate work. So now I'm having to reinvent the business for location work because we end up closing the studio. And like today, I'm just emailing back and forth with a vet clinic here, one of the biggest in the country. We do their headshots for their doctors. The good side of it is they have a high turnover rate. The bad side of it is that they have a high turnover rate. But we have literally gone into their clinic and photographed their doctors and staff members for the last 5 years, going on maybe 6 years now. And in fact, when we had closed our doors, they did try somebody else and ended up literally calling, emailing, and texting us. Can we please just come back and redo them? Those are great because we can shoot anywhere between 7 people to 20 people, which is what my last 2 weeks ago, we shot 20 people. That's over $125 a head, and you can do the math on that. Now, the problem is that they're a huge company, and it takes them 120 days to pay the bill. So we're trying to work with them. Yes, exactly. That's what I said. So we're trying to work with them to kind of speed that up. We also do smaller clinics. There are some, what do you call, what are the clinics where they do the baby scan pictures, the, not the EK, ultrasound clinics.
Ultrasounds, yeah.
Yeah. So their doctors are coming in. So we're doing the headshots for their clinics. We're doing headshots for a couple of dentist office that we're trying to expand into as well. And we're trying to, our hard part now is trying to convince all of them to go with a professional photographer instead of trying to do it with their cell phone, which a lot of their sites have been doing. And in fact, Leilani just sent me a link to a web, resort here that literally put into their email blast. It's a high-end resort. You're talking $500, $800 a night. And the pictures in that email blast look like something they took with a flip phone. It was that bad. So I don't know if people have just become comfortable with that quality or what. I can't imagine them hurting for money right now. But we're trying to actually go into those markets and try to get some of that business and show them the difference of that. The last hotel we photographed, the managers down in Rio Doso, they were very happy with the pictures. We did the rooms. We did some kind of, what do you call those, environmental shots of people there sitting around enjoying the hotel. And that was over a $5,000 job for us. And again, pre-pandemic. So we're trying to actually try to build that back up. And then the pet photography is another avenue. New Mexico is the 3rd largest pet ownership in the country, according to stats per capita. So somewhere in here, we're trying to work away, and I'm going to pick Pat's brain some more and see if we can figure out how to tap more into that market, because it is here. It's just trying to get people to get these pictures off their phones to do that. So that's been our biggest challenge.
And weren't you doing things up in Santa Fe also with the pet market and a little bit higher end clientele?
Yes, in fact, we just finished a client up in Santa Fe. We went to their house and $2.1 million estate and photographed their 2 dogs. They wanted the dogs and themselves photographed. So we went to their house, set up the studio. They had this beautiful bay window that looks out over the mountains. So we did a portrait session in their living room, looking out of the windows, and we were able to do a really nice session on that. And a lot of that was word of mouth. That couple actually heard about us, then read about us in the Albuquerque Journal with the pet calendar, and then heard from another friend. So it took 3 contacts worth of information about us for them to make the call. So we've learned from that as well. So we're hoping to kind of push more with that as well. Now, New Mexico is also just announced a new incentive for tourism and outdoor funding. And they're going to be putting over, I think, was it $11 million into this, because we have a $9 million tourism market. And they're going to actually push that toward local artists, photographers, everything from painting to photography to statue, multimedia art. So we're going to try to work with them and find out how to tap into that market as well and get some of that funding, and maybe use that to help expand our brand. And then Clay, just to talk about that a little bit more, as we expand the pet market, we have been meeting with a brand advisor to try and help spread us out a little bit more into these niche markets. These companies are literally trying to get that, get their business built back up. So we're hoping to do that with this brand advisor as well. Okay, Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I've got a technical question. Your couple that you shot in front of their big window outside,
Yes, sir.
how did you handle the dynamic range on that?
Okay, good question. So I used the 2 studio lights on the side, and we actually have the Godox 600s, which are the battery operated strobes. So we put those 45 degrees to the couple on the side to light them up. And then the first thing I did was expose before using the strobes was expose for the window, because they wanted to have that view with the mountains behind them. So then I just turned on my lights, turned down my power on the lights just to light enough of them in the room, and kept my exposure for the outside of the camera. So here's a trick that I actually teach at the base of some of the young airmen. I cheat. I actually put the camera in program mode, take the picture of the room, find out what the settings that the camera is telling me is going to be for the outdoors, which is usually spot on. And then I go back to manual mode, lock those settings in. Now my exposure for the outdoors in that window are perfect. My exposure for the inside is underexposed. So now I just bring up my flash units, my strobes, and this slowly bring up the power until I get enough light in there. And usually by the second exposure or the third exposure, I'm pretty nailed in there. But yeah, that's my trick cheat is to go in, turn it to program mode or aperture priority, get the shot that I want for the outdoor window, because I use that for headshots as well. And then turn back to manual, lock in those settings, and then introduce my strobe. And
so
then
using high-speed sync?
On that light, I didn't have to do high-speed sync because it was the light outside wasn't as bright. But if it was like a super bright day and I was actually shooting out a window and my exposure was 800 or 1,000 outside, then I would. But for the most part, if I'm shooting from inside out, my exposures usually don't go above 500th of a second or 400th of a second. And I sometimes can keep them down to 200 if I move my ISO way down to 100. And then that way, in the camera. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what are you doing with aperture? Are you trying to maintain detail in the background, or are you letting it blur out?
Exactly. So they want to have the big aperture. So I'm actually shooting wider open to keep that depth to actually make sure they can actually see the mountains. So I'm shooting at somewhere between f8, f11, just to make sure those mountains come in. That's why my shutter speed isn't that high, because I am kind of compensating for that in my aperture. On this scale, the aperture scale, the higher up my aperture goes, I can keep my shutter speed lower. And then I'm shooting on a tripod. That helps me if I have to go even lower with that one. I have to look at the settings again for that group picture on that one. But it wasn't, but I know I didn't have to do high speed sync for that one that day. But we did go outdoors to their patio where they wanted to show more of their patio in the mountains. And for that one, I did have to do high speed sync.
Hey, Alan, this is Shelton. I'm curious. So I've got a cat, and there's fur all over the house, everywhere. And I'm just curious how you're shooting animals with a black background and not picking up all of this straight fur.
I spent a lot of time in Photoshop and the healing tool. And there is no other way. With the black tablecloth, I use a polyester tablecloth, which actually helps if I have to pick it up and shake it. I keep lint rollers around, but in the end, honestly, there's going to be lint everywhere. Even when we had a sofa and I would put the black cloth on top of the sofa, by the time you get 2 or 3 animals up there, you're going to spend the next hour cleaning up the little fine pieces of fur. I haven't found any other way except for the initial part, the first part of that session, to be able to get a clean shot. But after that first 5-10 minutes, that's it. The fur is going to be everywhere. I guess you can stop, do a little quick cleanup, and then reintroduce the animal to it. Usually by 10 minutes or 15 minutes into the session, you can actually, the animal is a little less wary, so they're more comfortable, and you might get some better shots for that as well. We'll usually even take a break sometimes and let the animal run around or lay down and get comfortable, and then we'll start again.
How long do you normally, you just mentioned a 15-minute period of time for the animal to sit for the portrait. How long, what's your average time for the first session of that one animal?
That's a good question, Pat. So usually the animal's attention span and their tolerance for the whole session, especially if if we're using flashing lights or strobes, is no longer than 20 minutes. At the most I've done is 30 minutes, and that's about it. And I think that was for puppies. But at the most part, if you're not getting the shot in the first 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, the animal's attention is going to be pushed away. And if you're using strobes, which I like because it helps freeze the motion and I can get the sharpest picture, they may actually be afraid of it. And just to talk about that for a second, if an animal's walking into the studio and the person's there with them, what I'll try to do is to make sure that there are some treats introduced into the studio before they come in. So when they come in, they feel like this is a fun place. There's some treats on the floor. And then I'll just kind of remotely pop off the flash here and there just so they can, see it and know that this is going to go off. But by that time, they're so consumed by the treats, they're not worried about it. And then just start playing with them. So I get them excited in the beginning, and then just to make sure they're comfortable. And that's the ones that are having the most problem with being in a new place. But otherwise, if they're comfortable, then that session is no more than 10-15 minutes.
So a quick question, and maybe hopefully, I don't know, whatever length of answer. So you've got a couple of us know about Albuquerque and the differences between the financial sides of Albuquerque versus Santa Fe. And so do you have literally not just the travel time kind of rate, but do you have a different rate for different level of clientele?
That is another good question. I do. And in fact, we have that built into our estimates that we email out. So even for the VCA clients or headshots or pet shots, we charge a travel rate. So that's usually a flat fee. If we're going up to Santa Fe, it's $30. Above Santa Fe, it is a $50. So we had one of the resorts that were north of Santa Fe. We literally, and that was the furthest we've gone. That was a $50 surcharge for that. And we would love to stay there, but it was $900 a night for the room. So, and that was a corporate event that we fortunately got a hold of. But yeah, we do charge by the mile and by the distance and location fee. So if we come to somebody's house, we charge a location fee for that, and headshots and pets, we charge a location fee for that. And that's going to be anywhere from $30 to $50.
Okay, so but your actual shooting fee for Albuquerque versus Santa Fe versus Taos is the same. You, okay.
Correct,
I was
yes,
good. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That stays the same.
I'd like to go back to the pets. I
Mhm.
own rat terriers and have done show, conformation, and agility with them. And they have energy. They have boatloads of energy. How do you
Yes.
deal with those guys?
So that's where there's two ways that I usually deal with that. And a lot of times, like with the puppies or somebody that comes in with a lot of the energy. So one of the photographs we did was with a rat terrier, and that dog literally was running us ragged. But we can do anything. We just let it run around for about 20 minutes to finally wear itself out. And it was 4 dogs total. And by the time we finished the session, we were able to finally get one good shot. And the dog stayed on lead. So we had the handlers holding the lead up at all times to try and get a clear picture. I'll try to bring that picture up here as well to let you see that. Those animals that are high energy, the only thing you can do is let them run off. So the day we had 6 puppies in the studio that was brought to the shelter, we literally had 12 people in the studio that with the puppies all together, and we just let them run around and play. They played for almost 30 minutes, and then we finally went into the session. And then we finally started taking pictures. And even with that, we had people behind them holding them. Something like a rat terrier, same thing with the photograph that I did earlier with that dog. Let it run around, try to get tired, try to get comfortable. And then all of a sudden we can put them in one place and try to get that one shot. And that's where I use the flash, because you can get that one quick shot and that's all you need, whether there's a squeaky toy or a trigger word, or I like to bark. And I will actually bark during the session. And usually they'll stop, turn their head, and that's all it takes. Because
That's a
all I need is
strange
that.
dog.
Exactly, that's what they're saying, because they'll start and look at me sideways, and usually there's a cute little head tilt there, which the parents love as well. But literally a split second is all you need. But for high energy dogs, part of my prep to the parents is to take them on a walk beforehand, not only for the dog, but to make sure the dog is comfortable so they can actually go out and use the bathroom. I can't tell you how many times people have come to the studio and they haven't taken a dog out. And it just makes the session go, sideways, especially if he takes the number 2 in the studio.
Two
Yes, sir.
questions.
Mhm.
Questions. One, I was wondering about other animals, birds or horses. Being a rural state, I thought maybe you'd have 4-H or ranchers who want their prize animal pictured before with a blue ribbon.
Right.
And second question was a little more on the humorous side. Do you have a set of accessories or costumes that the owners will, okay, we'll put a pilgrim's hat on him for Thanksgiving. We'll put a pirate's hat on a cat. I don't know. Have you tried either one of those? Interested in just how broad this pet market extends.
Okay, that is a really good question, Clay, because we have tried to do more with the larger animal. In fact, we just made a post looking for llamas here in Albuquerque. One of the vets that we work with has 4 horses. They just moved into a new ranch house and they want to be able to go in and actually have these horses photographed. And we have photographed horses here using the barn, the doorway in the barn as the background, because a lot of them are severely spooked over the any cloth or anything that's behind them. So I'm just kind of see if I can find one here real quick. But on the horses, we have photographed several. They were for rescues that are here in Albuquerque. The hard part is that the rescues don't have the money, but we're trying to find those individuals here that do have the money that want their horses photographed. I know that there were several pet photographers here in New Mexico that worked with the Equestrian Society, and they were photographing the events. We did get a chance to photograph one horse who we were contracted to photograph for one of the events, the riding event. And that turned out pretty well. But it was a niche market, and there were two other photographers there who would literally travel around to the different circuits. So they were pretty much ingrained and locked in. It was kind of like going to the cat shows or to the dog shows, the canine shows. The photographers who travel around with them have been doing it for years, and they're basically ingrained in there, and they don't look for anybody else. So that we've had a hard time trying to break into that market. So we're trying to do it on the individual basis to see if we can find individual people and farmers and ranchers who want their animals photographed.
How are the horses reacting to strobes?
I try not to use the strobes on the horses. I'm shooting them outdoors and I'm using available light. I have not used a strobe on the horses. The owners, I follow whatever they tell me, and a lot of times the owners tell me it will spook them. And so I respect that and I won't use them. I got lucky once to use strobes at a horse shoot, and they said the horse was basically blind and deaf. So I lucked out with that one. But outside of that, they won't let me use strobes, and I respect that for those. But if I put a horse in front of an open barn door, I can use the barn door or the barn as a background, that opening, and it'll basically fall black. And then the light or sun that's hitting the horse will illuminate the horse, and I can do the rest in post. But that's that when you trying to use a strobe on a horse, I would not do. And we're kind of curious as to find out what it's going to look like for us with the llama. We don't know what that's going to do, but I'm hoping to do some really black background location stuff with the llamas. And what's the other animal that looks like a llama? The alpacas. Yes, alpacas. So we want to do that with those as well.
Have you worked with trying to accustom the animal to the strobes? Like give the owner a speed light to just flash occasionally?
So if we send it out to like a horse owner or alpaca owner, that's a good idea, Bill. Because they may be more comfortable if the owner's doing it than me coming in, flashing the light. I tell you what, I'll have to let you guys know how that goes if we get somebody to contact us about the llamas and alpacas and see if we can give them a strobe and try to do some test shots with them, and even just firing it off around them. We've had some dogs in the studio that freak out because of the flash, because they don't like lightning. I've had some birds in the studio, and I'll bring up another show here. In the studio where
we're not seeing your images that you're showing.
No, I haven't shared that. I was looking for the other one. I'll bring up this one here, and that way you can see it. I'm gonna share my screen here again. Let's see, share screen. We want to use screen 2, share. Okay, so these are just some of the examples of that we've done before. Magazine covers that we've shot for. This bird, the birds here was literally shot with fluorescent light, or LED lights, I should say, not fluorescent. So we did not use strobes for that. And this is me photographing the bird with LED lights. And the session goes a lot smoother. And this is ones with the strobes back again.
Yeah, I have had a cat that could get her eyes closed between the two strobes in TTL.
Correct. Yep. So you find
they
yourself,
are quick.
Yeah, you find yourself trying to block those. But literally, so the bird here in the middle, we use a strobe. That was the only way to kind of freeze that frame. The owner is on the floor tossing the bird up into the air, and the two on the side, we use for fluorescent lights. Excuse me. To light them, because these were rescues and the from a local parrot rescue. And they did not want to trigger the birds by using the flashes. So that's where we use the LEDs here. And these were 600 watt LEDs on each one, so 1200 watts total. And that gave us enough light to shoot the bird. And even the owner was telling me not to get too close to the bird because it would trigger her. So I had the owner literally just off to the side over here, just behind my light on the right, just to make sure the bird, didn't attack me or stay comfortable. But this was one of the the birds that won the Albuquerque General Magazine, and this was one of the pet photo shoots we did for them. And this was her first photo shoot. She's never done anything outside the home, and the bird's first time outside the home.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And we get that a lot with the cats. When the cats come into the studio, a lot of times they have never been outside the home. So they will end up having to spend some time in the studio to get comfortable. This is another example of the black dog on a black background. People always ask about that. This is one of the favorite ones of clients, and this was actually doing a Valentine's Day shoot in the studio. So they brought the dog in, dressed him up in a little bandana, and we were able to light it up with one light. And you can kind of see the catch lights in the eye of the dog.
Right.
It's just one light there.
I'm just looking, you don't have a lot of separation on the lower part of the dog.
No, it's one big soft box and everything just falls off. So we just kind of focus on the face and the eyes, and the rest of it we just let fall off. Unless there are some distinguishing features that they wanted down there, I don't even concern myself with it afterwards. And this is kind of the same thing, really close shot. The shot is about the dog and the young lady's face. So we just kind of focus on that, and then everything else. A lot of times I'll throw a darker vignette just to make everything else around it go dark.
I like the real soft light on her face.
Yeah, and that's where that 6-foot softbox with the bellows come in hand, or the egg crates come in hand. You just can't beat it.
Is that an octobox?
It is, yes, sir. Yep, it sure is. 6-foot octobox, and it's one that I've had for, oh my goodness, probably almost 10 years now. And
I don't think they wear out.
Yes, it shows its wear and tear, but it has lasted me through all these years. This pit bull here, her name was Stella, same thing, big soft box, and she was just the sweetest thing in the world. The event photo down here was kind of shot from a balcony, and this was one of the bigger events. This was a huge radiological detection company, global company, and they had a big, huge event here that lasted 2 weeks. The chocolate here is product photography. We call this Dr. Dreamy, is what my old assistant called him. So this was an example of one of the headshots we did for the local vet agency as well. And then this was a commercial job for Hotel Andaluz. They actually hired models to come in, did a model call. They went to the store, picked out clothing for them, and we sat down with the hotel and actually did a whole mock-up, and we did a full day shoot. It was an 8-hour shoot. So this was one of those very good moments for me. And you want to talk about those hyperactive dogs, Bill. So little Richie down here, he was that dog.
And the 2 cattle dogs.
And the cattle dogs are great. They were perfect. They were very well trained. The puppy here, yeah, he was like, I don't know. I think the dog was on crack or something, but she ended up having to hold him to finally get him to sit still. But we finally got one shot with them all looking straight ahead.
Have you had to go to compositing to get them to look at you?
Oh, yes. So we've literally done face swaps. We'll take pictures, or to get one picture, we'll take faces off another photo and then drop them in. We do that quite often. That's a lot of times the only way. The more people or pets you introduce to one picture, you're going to end up having to cheat it to get one phyto product. But once they have it there, I mean, they absolutely love the picture. It's their first one they've ever had with all of them looking outside of a cell phone. And this is still up on their wall today. They ordered a 20 by 30 print, 24 by 30 print for that one. And then I was going to
Just out of curiosity, I was wondering what percentage of a package is reserved or being, does the client has a choice in the final kind of framing and size of frame and things like that. But I was just curious, there's a sitting fee, there's other things. What percentage is the kind of the final post-production and the package, the frame that they choose?
You know, that is one of the areas that we're still working on as well, because we usually have a sitting fee, and that's $120 for the sitting fee, but we're trying to sell more products. So the last in-home session we did in Santa Fe, we used our old model where we literally just charged a package fee. So it was $500 for this session. They get one 11 by 14 fine art print, and then 2 5 by 7s fine art print. And then from that, we would charge, if they wanted other prints, which they usually do, we would charge by that. So anything from a canvas to a frame print, and that price can range from $300 to $400 to $1,000, depending on the size they want. So from that session alone, when they booked it, it was a deposit of $125 deposit, $500 for the session, which they paid when we got there because they were heading out on holiday. And then they bought pictures or products afterwards. So they spent another $800 on those. So that session alone, you're looking at just about $1,000 for 2 hours worth of work.
Pardon
And
me for snickering, but the post-processing had to be more than 2 hours.
so on those kind of jobs, I don't spend the time post-processing. I actually send out to a retouchers, and I've been working with these for years, and they know my style, and they literally have it back to me the next day. Sometimes it may take them 24 hours, depending on how busy they are. But they'll literally, if I upload a photo to the retouchers, they'll have it back either that afternoon or the next day for me. So for those high-end jobs, I stay away from retouching. They don't want my photo work on there. This example up on the screen is another example of one of those that I sent out to the retouchers because I wanted to change the background. And the owner wanted a different background color except for the black. So I knew a retoucher can go in and actually cleanly do that without making it look like a cutout. The one I would do look like a cutout. But that way they can have an option of a different background. Some of the others here with the, what do you call the pet vet clinics. This one are, sorry, I'm on the old computer. It takes a second to open up a picture here, apparently.
It's working.
Yep, there it goes. All right, so these are pictures of this clinic's pets, some of their pets that have passed. Some are current, and we sold them the package. And our idea was when we sold them this, is that we could come in on a quarterly basis or twice a year and then sell them new pictures to place up on the wall. This was going great again up until the pandemic, and then we had to change the business model. But our goal is to kind of take this to the next level. There's a new vet clinic hospital that's being built here, and we've already met with the owners and the managers, the regional managers, and our goal is to actually put large aluminum prints into the clinic, which would probably cost somewhere around $1,000 to print. But these are going to be super large, somewhere between 30 and 40, 30 by 40 to put up on the wall. So that would, I think those would look amazing once they're up on the wall. And they're interested. It sounds like one of the hospitals in California has it. So our goal is to try to find a price point that's going to make them happy and try to do it here. But that's where the llamas and the alpacas may come into play, because if we can get a couple of those test prints to put up on the wall and let them see, because they are an exotic animal hospital, we may seal the deal with that. So that's our goal with those.
Let me interrupt you for just a second and ask everybody here. Is everybody enjoying kind of the business side of this? NAPfS has never done the business side of it before. And I think it's interesting, though I'm PPA and get exposed to the business side on a fairly regular basis.
Well, I'm just, as a hobbyist, I'm just impressed and enthused with the consistency, the professionalism, the hustle, you know, that you have to do this, but and clearly the professional studio lighting is just so, I mean, it's so impressive, you know, and I'm inspired. So thank you for this presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Should we ask members to, in next year's competition, to do something with artificial light?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we've had past meetings where Josh kind of, you know, we talked about bounce lighting with speed lights. We had a model at one point, and he talked about the portrait lighting, the Rembrandt modeling. We've had past programs on that.
I'd like to
But
say
we
I'd
had
like
not
to-
recently, not with Zoom. We haven't been able to do it at all with Zoom.
I'd like to
Patrick, we
say
may
I
want to try
enjoy
some of
hearing-
it.
No.
Go ahead.
I enjoy hearing about the business side of it because so few photographers are willing to talk about it. Vanessa Joy does a little bit about it, but other than that, most simply don't.
If you are really interested, oh wow, I love the blue eyes. If you're interested, go ahead and join Austin PPA. And
That's
about a third of their meetings cover business.
Okay, wow. And that is an area, and Pat and I have talked a lot about that. It is a changing market. Everything has changed from the way I used to do it. Like I said, I didn't have to worry about a lot of the corporate work until you know, the pandemic. But remaking the business, changing, has been a challenge, and we're still trying to figure it out. We're always competing against cell phones and people, because most of their pictures now, they're not looking for big, large prints, but we know that there is a market for that. And our goal is to find that market here that do want those unique, large family heirlooms. And that's how we want to try to sell that to them. And this type of work, you know, and that's why I send this out to retouchers. If somebody's going to spend $1,000, $2,000 on a session with the product, then I can spend a couple $100 on professional retouchers that are going to give me this type of work. And just like you said, Bill, it's consistent. Because what I've tried to do in the past, it's not been consistent. I can't recreate this all the time. And this was one of the ones that we did a calendar for in our studio. And out of the 12 months, 13 pictures that we did, you know, they made all of them look identical and absolutely pristine.
Can you go
Yeah.
back to the previous picture? In the background, I see a light gray circle.
Correct.
Was that added on purpose? I like it.
It was. In fact, I did not do a separation light. So the retouchers went in and actually added separation for the dog. And this was kind of it wasn't a planned shoot. It was just something fun shoot. But this shoot actually kicked off our calendar. So the retouchers actually set it up so that there was some separation in the background from the animal. And now I'm making attention to have another light to kind of separate the animal from the background. But this one kicked off our calendar.
Are you finding that the pet photography leads to person, portraits or
Family photography?
versa?
With people photography, yes. A lot of the pet owners that we photograph, they'll want photos, and then that leads into them keeping our name and contact information, and then they can use us for other events. So we always try to upsell that. So like the last one in Santa Fe, we did their home photography. These are going to be heirlooms on their wall. They're always going to see us. We gave them watermarked prints or watermarked digital files to carry on their phones. So when they show other people those pictures at low res, they have our brand on them. And then they can continue to talk about it. So our goal is to use that as a word of mouth, because we've actually had more, that's been the brunt of our business, has been word of mouth for everything from the corporate work to the pet photography. That has spread more than any advertising we've ever done.
Yeah, and in New Mexico, from my recollection, word of mouth is everything.
It is, yeah. And you and I have talked about that before. It is a huge part of the delivery here.
So Kim Ju went out of business out of the,
Correct.
yeah. So did anybody pick up his school photography business? Because he had much wrapped up.
So a lot of the school photography, and we went into one of the schools at a smaller school for one of my assistants, and they were using Life Touch as their photography, school photography. That one is a tough market that we tried. We were warned going into it by a couple of the parents that the parents will find the cheapest package to buy, or a lot of them were taking screenshots of the pictures. But it's a high volume, business. And it was just too much work for us for that. But I know a lot of that school stuff, they went over to the bigger companies like Life Touch. And I think that's owned by Shutterfly now. And then this was one of the ones that I did of the horses I was looking for earlier. So you can see I'm letting the handler handle the horse at a distance. And I try not to spook the horse, but I'll make clicking noises or something to try and get the ears up. But I'm shooting with the intentional background, whether it be the sky, the mountains, or foliage in the background, and shooting with the 70-200 zoom lens, just trying to compress that bright background. But this is kind of my shooting style with the horses so far.
Are you shooting wide open or stop down?
I'm actually, you're right, that's a good one. I'm actually shooting low ISO because on my D810 I can go down natively to 100 and then actually drop down below that. And then I'm actually shooting on this one, I think about 3/4, so that I can get some of the background, but I'm just to try and blur it out, but I'm not shooting wide open on that one. And we ended up using this one for a calendar, the final shot, and I didn't find the one for the barn. Let's see what this one. Yeah, this was a video of shooting in the studio with Cosmo, and this was after the session with Cosmo, and the mom wanted to kind of get a portrait of them of Cosmo in there with her. And then talk about getting into your work. So I'm laying down in the paddock at the horse stables, trying to get a new angle, a different angle, something unique. And the owner was right there when I'm taking my life into my own hands, because the horse could, get spooked at any moment and kick me or stomp on me or whatever. But this one was really cool. He was a rescue, and he was a really cool horse. So we had a great fun photo shoot with him. But that unique angle allows me to give them something that they haven't seen before, instead of the straight on shots. And this was one of those more unique ones. This turtle was heavy as heck. But this was a calendar shoot for the Albuquerque Journal. And this was after the shoot, of course. But that thing felt like a bag of cement. It literally felt like a bag of cement.
Have you looked at Dave Fitzsimmons' work?
I have, yes. We've talked about that in the past. There's another couple of pet photographers. There was one in Santa Fe that I actually just talked to this weekend. He came by for the Valentine's Day shoot, but he moved here from New York, and he's actually a world-renowned pet photographer. He ended up closing his studio in Santa Fe. So we,
Fitzsimmons specializes more in unique animals. The turtle is what? Ring a
Like-
bell there.
like that, yeah. And that's what we're thinking now. If we try to market, get into the market of the more exotic animals, the llamas, the alpacas, the emus, the turtles, I can produce this type of work. These are just some of the behind the scenes of the studio stuff. You talk about those dogs who are high energy. Well, we're just going to play with them a while and let them burn it out. But that's what we want to try to do, is to get into this market where there are not a whole lot of people doing it. It's unique, it's specialized, and try to see if we can make it work. And then set our price point. That was one of the reasons I took the contract at the base. I'm not going to chase price point with people. This was a photo of a studio class that I did here for the Enchanted Lens Camera Club. A little while back. And this was one of the parrots they brought to the studio. And again, shooting this with the LED lights and staying a good distance away from the parrots, because the parrot could actually bite through my finger or face. And so we let the owners run that. And that's that same picture of the bird up in the air. But
The strobes didn't stop the wings, did they?
no, and in fact, we wanted to let that kind of catch some motion just to show that they're moving. So you won't just have this bird float frozen in the air. But you're talking about studio type work. You can't get this outside, or, with the I can't with available light. To me, I love the studio because you can't get that look outside of anything else. And literally just being 4 to 5 to 8 feet off the backdrop and the light focus on the subject, the background just goes completely black. And this was one of the more recent ones we did outdoors, and I'm laying on the ground just like them, literally on my belly to get this shot. And I'm actually shooting it with the 7200 to kind of bring in the background and get rid of that brick wall that's in the background.
I like the lens flare. Is that
Love it.
natural?
Shooting into the light, and as the sun was going down, I love that touch to it. I play with it all the time. And then I'm using a strobe to kind of fill in the shadows for them. And you can see the catch light and their eyes here. Dog's eyes.
So
But
you didn't add the sun rays.
No, fortunately, those were free.
I thought you had a great retoucher.
Yeah, no, this is one of the ones that I did on those, so I didn't have to worry about those. But
Nice.
yeah, but if it's studio work, I'll get to the retouchers for those. This was the calendar that we did. We kind of try to do it as a fundraiser, so we were selling the calendars for $25 each. And then we only had a small run, on-demand run made of those calendars, but they were a huge hit, and people have been asking us to redo them. But that was $4,000 to print those calendars. We did not want to go the typical real estate calendar, or the ones that you get from the free market, or the free calendars. So we went to a high-end designer who designed a calendar, and then a high-end printer, and had those printed on heavy stock with gloss, and they were just beautiful. The people still talk about them. And we sold ads. So this was an ad form to help pay for the calendar. So each month there was a different company that was down here, and we had a coupon down there that was at the bottom of the calendar. So maybe we can do that again once we get the exotic animals like the llamas and alpacas and the turtles involved in there. And this was those puppies I was talking about. So you talk about that consistency, Bill, that same look. This was all done by the retouchers. but the puppies were plumb tuckered after all that playing around. And we cheated because behind the puppies are people. They were hunkered down behind the sofa, holding them down, the ones that were awake. But for the most part, they had played themselves to sleep. But this was one of my favorite photo shoots that we ever did. And that was all 6 of them. And then they brought mom in. I don't have that one there with mom. That's the bigger one of that bird that we shot earlier, but the bird is using the LED lights, and we put gels on the lights to kind of add to the color of the bird. That's Sherry underneath the blanket holding the kitty who was bad. But that was just kind of the, the other ones behind the scenes that I knew I could find. I wanted to try and show you.
Your warmer runner, the light on the background, that was from the retoucher?
That is correct. So again, that was a completely black background. And then the retoucher came in and said, hey, why don't we do this? And I couldn't thank them enough because it just really popped. And that's why I go with them. But again, one light and then a reflector over here on the to the left of the dog, right on the screen. But that one big softbox. And you can't go wrong with Weimarimers. They're just beautiful dogs.
Yeah, they're not the smartest dog around.
This is true. So this is that turtle, the final processed photo for that one. And again, this is from the retouchers.
Complete with catch lights.
Yep. And you can see the detail on that. It's just beautiful. And this thing is going to live to be a long time.
This is your 810?
This is the 810, yes, sir. Yeah, it sure is. That 810 has been through hell and high water. I've dropped it twice. I've broken the lens mount on it. It's been repaired twice. I've sent it out for cleaning and repair. It is still running. Pat's trying to talk me into a Z7 II.
Well,
Oh, go to the 9.
yeah, if you're gonna go that far, you might as well go to the 9, yeah.
So funny you mentioned the 9. We have that at the base studio, and I don't use it anymore. In fact, we tried to use it again today, but the Z9 low light, high ISO, and maybe it's this camera, but it's useless to us. We cannot use it. The video is amazing. The shooting regular ISO anywhere between 100 to 400 is beautiful. I mean, the pictures are amazingly sharp. But when we try to go to anywhere to shoot a low light event where we can't use strobe or shooting indoors, and we're pushing the ISO to 2000, I can't even use them. So again, I don't know if anybody else has had that problem with that. If anybody has a Z9, we would love to find that out.
I have a
Noisy.
Z9.
Yeah,
I do
you're
not have
wrong.
problems.
I'm going to say it, you're wrong, because I do it all the time in the dark, and it works a treat.
So
So
Gary, you're shooting above at high ISO on that one?
I shoot at whatever ISO is required, and that can be anything along the range. The reset of the ISO because of the dual sensor at 500 is a godsend. Yeah, it works great. I see all kinds of things in a Facebook group where people shoot in sports in basketball arenas at 4, 5, 8,000. I use it for dance at least 4,000, and I have no trouble at all.
So I'm wondering if we have a bad camera, and we've actually sent files to Nikon, to their tech, because literally at 2000, our ISO looks like something that I've shot on a D300 at 4,000.
I would be happy to have a dialogue offline if you'd like to email me, and I can share some images with you, and you can kind of compare to what you've got.
Okay.
A variety of things to absolutely compare, because yeah, I mean, it'd be worthwhile to find out if maybe it's a bad camera. It happens.
You can probably get 4
Okay.
samples from this group.
Perfect. Well, I'm definitely will do that. That'll help us to help diagnose this, because we've been getting the runaround from Nikon, and
Well, I
they
think
just sent. they just
I
sent
think-
us another BIOS update patch, and we just ran that one, and it did not change anything.
Is this
So-
3.0 or
I'm sorry.
is this version 3.0 of the firmware?
It is 3.0, and it was dot something else. It says they said it was something
Yeah.
unreleased, but it did not fix it. And we've sent them the test files for that one. And we can go outside literally in broad daylight, go up to 2,000, try to shoot an individual or group, and it is terrible. So I'm beginning to think it is the camera.
The
Because-
Z9 is a 2-stage ISO invariant. So everything from, I want to say 64 to 1600 is the same. You can change it in Lightroom and it'd be the same as if you change the ISO in the camera. And then from
Okay.
1600 up, or maybe it's 3200 up.
That's
But-
what we've been reading, and that's why we bought the camera or they bought the
Yeah.
camera because we knew that was going to be the case for that.
Something's wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. I'll get your contact information,
Sure.
Gary, and whoever else has the Z9. It was one of the ones I wanted, but after that experience, I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
keep that kidney for now.
Well,
I love it. Yeah.
Alan, I promise you could send it to me. I can tell you right off the bat that it's a bad camera. I'll send my $10 to the Air Force.
Okay. Well, next time you're in Albuquerque, you come by the base, I will go play.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, just like you said, Bill, the business side of this thing has been a challenge, but we're trying to rethink it. I'm brainstorming with other people. Pat and I have talked a lot, so we're hoping to kind of find a unique niche market, and maybe these exotic animals and the farm animals will be that for us.
I'm going to ask a question. I heard when I first started out and I was looking at doing portrait work, I participated in a webinar where someone was talking about doing animals that were near end of life.
Oh yeah.
Have you gone into that? Because I've heard stories that, you know, sometimes the owners will do a session and then they're too distraught over doing anything until the animals passed away and they've kind of processed it. And then they will sometimes come back and spend a great deal of money on pictures of their beloved but missing pet.
Right. And in fact, our first gallery showing were the senior pets, and we had over 15 portraits up on the wall of the gallery showing, and these were all senior pets. And you're right, that show alone was amazing. I mean, we were selling just the matted prints at the show for $200 a pop. And then after the pets were 15, 16, 17 years old. So they were at the end of life. We had people contact us a couple of years several years after the show, asking for the files or more prints and things like that. That is another unique market that I haven't looked back. And now you mentioned that, Gary, maybe that's something I can look back at as well. Because you're right, people, this is their children. A lot of them don't have their children, and these are their children. That's a good idea. I'll add that one to the list as well. Any other questions while I kind of look through? This was the ones from the horse shoot. I really liked the horse shoot. That was a great photo shoot. So these were kind of the behind the scenes shots from that. And as a point of hygiene, and knowing that I was going to lay on the ground, I carried a second set of clothes with me to make sure I didn't bring anything back, pathogens or anything back from the paddock, let alone the dust.
There's no dust in Albuquerque.
Yeah,
It's all blown away.
exactly.
In those pictures it is, you know.
Yeah. But I really love that shoot, and I do want to do a lot more of those. And like I say, we couldn't ask for a better date with this horse. She was amazing. The turtle did not want to listen to any commands as far as stay, sit, or roll over. So he just kind of pushed through anything he wanted, and there was no stopping him.
Just use a high shutter speed. You'll freeze any action with the turtle.
Exactly. and a good strobe.
Just have to watch the cables so he doesn't bite him.
Well, he literally pushed through a couple of lights and then was working his way out the door. This is another one of the behind the scenes, working with the dog on the sofa with the black background and just trying to get the dog's attention. And using a treat or calling him or something like that. And again, like I say, I'll bark. But you can see the background distance. He's probably about 5 feet, 6 feet off the background. And the light for this one is just off to the camera right.
Do you shoot tethered most of the time?
If I'm in studio, I'm always shooting tethered. Yes, sir. I love it because I can review them right away. And then the client is there and they're seeing it. If I'm shooting commercially for products, I'm shooting tethered. The client loves it, they can see it. If I'm shooting outdoors on location, then I'm just shooting in camera. If I'm shooting the headshots for the vets, like this past week, I'm shooting tethered because they want to review them. In fact,
Lightroom or Capture One?
I'm using Lightroom. I tried Capture One a couple of times, but with my workflow for me, because I'm using Lightroom and Photoshop, it's just easier for me to shoot into Lightroom.
So to a comment and a question, you're using Windows. The Z9 doesn't tether to Lightroom on Windows right now. They just got Mac OS working.
Oh,
You need to know that if that's important to you for that particular camera.
So we ran into that today.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen. I don't know anything about Cam Rangers or anything with the Z9. I haven't investigated that, but direct tethering to Lightroom apparently doesn't work yet.
And it doesn't work with the streaming device because we have a YOLO box streaming Pro streaming device. It would not connect to that one either.
Yeah, as a software engineer for a day job, I have lots of choice words for the entire concept, but I'll just keep them to myself.
Don't worry, we'll talk offline.
On regarding the dogs, though, I'm curious on the dogs. How many different things do you have to make noise to get their attention?
Actually, we keep it down to literally just one.
Really?
And I'll give you an example here. I'm gonna pull the microphone away. But I bark. So, and usually that bark alone will get their attention to look around, twist their head for that split second, and that's all I need. So I'm ready for it. If an assistant is working behind me, they know on 3, they'll do the squeak at that moment that I'm ready to do the shutter. I don't give that to the client because it's too much power. And the client will sit there and squeak, 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 squeak the whole time. So I'll have to take it away from them.
I know those sorts of things are only good for 2, 3, 4 times at best. So.
Exactly. And usually your session with the pets are only going to be about 15 minutes.
Okay.
So at that point, very short. So if you can't get the shots usually in that time, then those are you want to give yourself a break, pause, take a break, let the animal get rested, and then come back to it. And usually within that next 15-minute period, so within a 30-minute session. So we do an hour session for the pet, but that hour session includes the pet coming in, getting comfortable, talking to the client, doing the session, taking a break, and then doing a follow-up session, because we usually get some better shots after the break. Those shots of the pet's a lot more calmer, and sometimes they even lay down and we can get some really cute laying down shots.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's a good one. Yeah, this was preparing for this was kind of cool because it gave me a chance to go back through a lot of my old photos for sessions. Actually, this was one that we just did for a musician, and this is going to go in his album cover. So he wanted to match a photo that he had taken 15 years prior. And basically we were able to recreate that photo and give them the exact same thing. So this was kind of our first composite shot. We had to have the retouchers remove some things. They changed the color of the conduit up here. And then I think the final one they finally approved, and that went to his album cover. And it looked almost identical to the one to the previous one.
You've got the BC's attention.
Yeah, yep. Same thing. I just did the little bark, got the dog's attention, and the final photo, they ended up using that one with a few edits. But again, commercial work like this, if I'm on location shooting an album cover, that's an $800 to $1,000 job for one photo. Because that's commercial, and he's going to use that, and he's going to own it. I was looking for one for that we had, but I don't have that one in the background. So, but that's kind of my world. Hopefully, thank you, Claire. Appreciate that. Hopefully that answers a lot of questions. I would love to share more as we develop it. Like I say, we're trying to restart everything ourselves here. So I think at this point we're all relearning. I like the ideas I even heard tonight to try and go back to some of those old roots of, like Gary was saying, of picking up some of these senior animals and advertising some senior shoots. I think that'll be a nice kickoff. But I'm definitely excited about the llamas and the alpacas. I'll have to keep you posted about that one. I've gone blurry here.
You are welcome to join us at any time we have an online meeting, Alan.
I thank you. I will definitely have to join in now. Pat has snookered me in here. So, and Pat, we'll have to talk. I know you're moving there. Oh, why I've gone blurry. That's weird. We'll have to catch up. A lot has happened here locally.
Yeah.
Have
Okay.
you tried connecting with zoos?
They're actually here. There was a group of photographers that go to the zoo all the time, and they're shooting basically for free there at the zoo. So I can't compete with that. on something that they would want. They're coming in, but I will go there and actually use the zoo, and I have a pass to photograph at the zoo and the biopark.
I just think it'd get you some exotic animals that you wanted to add to your.
Oh, to the repertoire.
Yeah.
I don't know how can that work? And can I sell those
I don't know if you could sell them, but you could display them as advertising.
as advertisement and have something
Yeah,
to kick off?
I mean, I guess you talk to the zoo about, what they would allow and what licensing, but once you push the shutter button, you own the photo. So as long as they agree to it, then you could sell them and
Well,
maybe promote it in some way and say, taken at the Albuquerque Zoo.
What I would do is get the zoo to, basically, it's like going to the national parks and saying, I want to photograph in the parks to make money.
right.
They want a small fee. And so you pay them a small fee, they give you a release, and you can, at that point, then you're allowed to shoot anything and everything and sell anything and everything.
Yeah, I did read about that.
Yeah, so maybe that's the way the zoo there would work. There is, I sent you an email while we were talking, a couple of them, and one of them is there's a wildlife rescue in the East Mountains, just right off of I-40.
Mm-hmm.
That may, it might be just a good place to get those exotic shots. The other one is there's a wolf sanctuary out by Grants.
Yeah, in fact, I have photographed at the wolf sanctuary for the Pet magazine when we were shooting that, as well as the parrot rescue here, Birds of a Feather. We were actually trying to pull together a coffee table book with the Birds of a Feather, and that was one of the problems I ran into with the rescues. the rescues are always desperate for extra money. So they wanted to basically own the project. And if I'm gonna front everything and have to have that go back to them, I just didn't want to take that risk on that one. Because it was gonna be pretty substantial just to be able to do that and get those coffee tables book printed. But I would be using their animals for it. So trying to come up with a comparable deal or something that would work for both parties, we found difficult. So one of them was an owl rescue, and they wanted me to send them the business plan. But I knew already that the owl rescue had 4 photographers that were volunteers that literally travel with them all over the world. So I didn't want to release that to them. So that was one of the problems. I kind of leery working with a lot of the nonprofits with the animal rescues, because again, I know the animals, they're desperately needed money. I would love to be able to do that if, you know, if I were a millionaire, but to front a project and to spend the money to create one, I just didn't see that happening that way. And let's see if I can bring up one here and show you guys. The chicken. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of a project called the Chicken Book.
Nope. Still in the chicken book.
Nope.
And Pat, I think I kind of shared this with you. See if I can find it here and share the screen.
Is it a
But
cookbook or something?
Well, actually, it's a photograph, photography book. It was done 2021. 2 gentlemen in Italy actually did the project. And let me share the screen for you. So they sold this book around the world, and you can see here the number of backers that they did was what, 2165, and they raised over 143,000 euros. But absolutely beautiful photos of these chickens, and these were what do you call the chickens? Are there show chickens or just kind of
Nuggets.
yes. Chicken nuggets.
Oh.
I mean, but you can see the work here. And this is kind of what I wanted to do here locally with the exotic animals, and to come up with something like this in a series and a book. They put a lot of money into this book, and they were selling them for, you know, 22 euros for pledges on this Kickstarter. But they ended up raising a total of 148,000 euros. So I think after all the expense and reading some of the notes internally with their story, with the 2 photographers, they barely broke even because of the expense of getting it all done. But it was absolutely beautiful and stunning. And again, this is something I would love to be able to do with the exotic animals and have these type of prints, be able to sell them repeatedly, create a coffee table book for these. I mean, but the work there that they did here was absolutely amazing. And I think there's a video of kind of behind the scenes, and they made international news with this. The marketing on this was amazing.
Ed, we're not going to get cut off or anything, are we?
No, it'll go. I mean, there's no cutoff time.
Okay. As long as everybody's happy and having fun and Alan's willing to hang in there, let's roll.
Well, I don't want to hold you guys up too long either. But this may be kind of inspirational. I know this was kind of inspirational for me when I first saw it. And on my Windows 7 laptop here. See if it'll actually load. I'm not running Windows 7. It's actually Windows 10, but the original load is 7.
Well, this has been great, but I've just got some new light painting brushes delivered and I've got to go play. So I'm gonna have to leave you guys.
I saw the light wands.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Franz. All right, so this was their promotional video that they shot. And they just shot this in a room with a tabletop, table and a little suite and a light above the chickens.
Where did they find the chickens at a show?
They
Well,
probably,
that Kickstarter has ended, of course, but again, just what they did was beautiful. So that's kind of what I was thinking about doing here with some of the exotic animals and going that route. They spent money and time on the paperwork, the press, the printer in Italy, having these done. And it truly is a fine art book. And again, I would love to get to this level with a lot of those, and I think that would be a game changer for me.
well, based on the comments farther down where they're talking about the printing,
Correct.
it looks like they did offset printing and they did almost a lay flat binding. And 2,000 backers at 143,000 euros it turns out to be about 75 euros per book average.
Mhm.
And even at 2,000, that probably wasn't enough for that book. So they probably didn't price it correctly, which is why they barely broke even.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the
that was the
expense that
first
they had on the printing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a pretty book.
It sure is. And then being able to sell other calendars and note cards and things like that, in their market. Hopefully, I can do that with some llamas. We just got to get them all cleaned up.
That's going to be fun.
Yes, I agree. So Pat, next time you're in Albuquerque, we'll visit a llama farm.
That sounds fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
So
But yeah, I am definitely excited about sharing this with everybody. Hopefully it was a help. And then hopefully I can be as transparent and make a difference for you there as well. Maybe I'll start a Kickstarter in the next week or so and go find some llamas to name them funny names. Mr. Bond. Sugar Daddy.
Oh,
That's funny. Hot potato.
anybody else got any more questions for Alan, and we can let him go?
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Pat, thank you for inviting me. Bill, thank you for hosting. I appreciate everybody being here and listening in. And again, it's a passion. I'm sure, like you guys all know, it's an addiction for me. So it helped me to talk about it. It's like group therapy.
We have to thank Ed also for making the connections work.
Yes.
We depend upon him.
Well, Ed, you came through. You rocked it out. So I appreciate that. I had to go back to another computer, but it seemed to made a connection this time. So we're happy with that. And if you have me back, I would love to come back and at least join in and kind of be part of the group if you're there, kind of North Austin.
yeah.
Great.
Sounds
All right.
wonderful. Well, we
All right.
appreciate everything that you've offered, presented, told to us, expanded upon, all of those wonderful things. This has been fantastic. I think a lot of people learned a lot of stuff tonight.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here and happy to do it.
Yeah.
And Leilani's working on behind the scenes with me to kind of pull together some stuff for the location shots that we've been doing outdoors. So who knows, maybe that can be the next one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you could always come over here and shoot. Wait a minute. No, we don't have that kind of, never mind.
I don't know. We can find some steers or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Longhorns.
So, okie doke.
All right. Well,
It is-
thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Thank
I'm-
you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go grab some dinner and a cup of coffee and go do some homework.
Too late for coffee. Take care.
Take care. Have a good night.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
Good night.